Hey there, writer rebels, and welcome to my second part on newsletters. Last week we talked about whether or not an author still needs a newsletter, and this week we're going to talk on how to grow a newsletter from zero to awesome. Hey there everyone, it's me, Scarlett Kol, young adult author, YouTuber, and storyteller. And today I'm here with part 2 in my newsletter series, and we are going to be talking about growing your newsletter. Last week we already discussed on whether or not authors still need newsletters, so if you want to check that out in the cards, I'll leave it there for you. And next week we are going to talk about some tips on how to make newsletters more efficient and more effective. But for this week, we're going to talk about getting people on your newsletter list in the first place. There's no point in having an effective newsletter if you're not sending it out to anyone. So we're going to get started on those tips right away. However, I do want to give a quick shout out to all of my subscribers who keep coming back week after week and allowing me to make this fantastic content. If you are brand new here, take a look around. Hopefully you'll like what you see, and make sure you're hitting that subscription bar and the notification bell below this video so they can let you know whenever I put out new content. I have some exciting things coming up for 2021, so hopefully you're not going to want to miss any of it, especially if you're liking this newsletter series. As I said, I still have another video coming in this series as well as other things to talk about publishing and marketing. But in terms of newsletter growth, I've got a lot to say, so I'm going to try and jump right in there. Hopefully this video won't be too long, but I do have a lot of things that I want to cover, so I'm probably going to try to get through it as quickly as I can. However, there's a lot of nuances and a lot of points that need to be made about newsletters and newsletter growth. However, before I start, I do want to put 2 caveats on everything that I'm going to say. First off, quantity doesn't equal quality, especially when it comes to newsletter subscribers. I'm sure you're sitting back, especially if you're a newer author and you're having that thing where you're seeing people with 40,000 people, 50,000 people, even just 2,000 people on their newsletter, and you're sitting there going, well, I have 20, or I have 200, or I have whatever your number happens to be. Don't panic. Just because somebody has 40,000 subscribers doesn't mean that they're quality subscribers. If you break some of this stuff down, obviously those people on your newsletter are the people that you want to be telling about your books. You want them engaged in your author career. You want them interested in what you're doing, what you're writing, and what you have coming up. However, just because somebody is signed up for your newsletter doesn't mean that they're going to be that kind of subscriber. You might also just have lurker subscribers that just kind of like to check stuff out, but hopefully, eventually, they're going to be interested in your work, buy your books, and be interested in your content. So if you had a list of, let's say, 200 subscribers that actively buy your books every single time you put them out. Every time you send a newsletter, they're going to, buy your books or send you emails or promote you or do something for you. Then that's probably going to be a lot more helpful for you than to have a list of 40,000 subscribers who basically just delete it if they read it at all. 40,000 people who don't buy your book aren't very useful. And ultimately, yes, subscribers don't actually have to buy from you. They can support you in other ways. However, when we do talk about this as a business, you obviously want to sell books if you want to keep writing books. So I'm probably going to talk about subscribers buying, but I'm basically just talking about engagement and being involved in you as an author and positive word of mouth, all of those good things. So when it comes down to it, you're obviously better having a subscriber count that's going to be more engaged than a large subscriber count that isn't very engaged with what you're doing. So a lot of people will jack up their numbers really, really quickly through some of the methods that I'm going to mention later, but those people that have signed up aren't really interested in that author if they don't unsubscribe as it is. So before you start to panic and think that you need to have these sky-high numbers, I know it can be very intimidating because you'll go into something like a newsletter swap group or something like that, and people are asking what your newsletter list numbers are. And it can be very intimidating when you're in there and seeing people with tens of thousands of followers or subscribers for their newsletter, and you just don't have that. Well, first off, it's going to take you time to build, especially if you're a new author. These things do take time, and you are asking people to give you their email address, which is personal information. So sometimes it's a little bit harder for them to make a commitment to do that as opposed to just following or liking you on your social media. But it will happen. You may not get to these huge numbers that you're seeing in other places, but my stress when you are trying to grow your newsletter would be on quality subscribers as opposed to quantity of subscribers. Similar to this is my second caveat, and that's basically do not worry when you lose subscribers or need to clean, cull, or scrub, though all those terms are used interchangeably, your list. There will be times that people will subscribe to your newsletter, you will send stuff out, and they will unsubscribe. Do not take it personally. If you're seeing a large mass exodus from your newsletter list, then maybe this is something to worry about. But you will get unsubscribers all the time. There are people who signed up for maybe a free thing or whatever. I will talk about some of those methods later, and just don't feel that it's useful for them. Or they started reading your books, they're not really interested anymore, so they stopped doing that. Or maybe it's just a personal thing. They get way too much email. In this whole COVID pandemic era, people have been spending a lot of time on their computers. Reducing the amount of email they get is maybe something that they're working on. And it's nothing about you. They just don't want to be getting anything else in their inbox. So that's totally fine. And you don't want people on your newsletter list that don't want to be there. Like I said about the engagement, if people are not engaged, are not interested, they're just taking up space on your newsletter list. If you only have about 200, it's not a big deal. But when you do start getting into those larger and larger numbers, they usually let you have a few thousand subscribers. But after that point, you are going to have to start paying a monthly fee for those really, really large newsletter lists. If they are engaged, that's totally wonderful, because the cost of that newsletter is going to be way cheaper than ad marketing or anything like that. However, if you are paying for a bunch of subscribers that are sitting on your list that aren't doing anything for you, then why are you paying for them? Next week, I am going to talk about how to scrub and cull your newsletter list. So I'm not going to get into it in too much detail here, but do realize that it's okay if people unsubscribe if they really aren't interested in your content, and it is okay to remove people from your list and to keep your numbers low to keep those quality subscribers on your list as opposed to just a quantity of subscribers. Now that we got that business out of the way, I'm going to start on the tips to grow your newsletter list. Some of them are going to be more applicable to newer authors, and some of them will be more applicable to authors that have been in this business for a little while. So hopefully, no matter where you are in your career, you'll be able to pick up a good idea to keep growing your list if that's what you wanted to do. If you're just checking out my video and not really interested in growing your list, well, that's awesome as well. But I'm assuming those people that are watching are trying to grow. So these tips are for you. My first tip for growing your newsletter list is tell people about it. One of the things I see a lot, especially with newer authors, is they will create their newsletter list and they're so busy doing all of the things like writing the book, marketing the book, getting all their social media platforms up there, all that kind of stuff. And they set up their newsletter, they're excited about it, but they don't tell people about it. So one of the things that you should definitely be doing is making sure that there's a sign up link anywhere you can possibly have it. I mentioned this in a video before when I was talking about book link hacks. So if you want to check that out, you can. But basically, when you have a newsletter link, you want to make sure that people know that A, you have a newsletter, and B, you'd like them to sign up. So make sure you have it on your website. If you can, put it in your signature in your email box if you have a author specific email that you're sending out, or a signature that you can add for your author business whenever you are sending out email. Make sure that you are including it in the back matter of your books. Make sure that you have it on all of your social media profiles in your bio. So anybody who checks you out, even just for a second, can click on that link and sign up to your newsletter list. If they can't find it, or it's only in one place like your website, you are definitely going to get way less traffic than you would if it's everywhere. If you are doing any sort of online kind of thing, there have been a lot more like virtual signings, lives, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you're referencing your newsletter and make sure you include that link whenever you can. My second tip is to make sure that your newsletter link is evergreen. And what I mean by that is that no matter at what stage of your career that somebody wants to click on that link to sign up to your newsletter, that they're able to do so. As you go through your author career, you will make changes, you will adjust, you will change things. So one of the things that happens a lot is newsletter providers like MailChimp, MailerLite, Flowdesk, whoever you're working with might change their terms, or something might happen. You might decide to go somewhere that's cheaper. There's functions in one that doesn't work as well for you. But for me, for instance, I've already changed newsletter subscription platforms 3 times, and I've only technically been published for about 3 years. So for me, anytime I have a newsletter link anywhere, I want to be able to have it in a place that people are going to be able to click on it and find me no matter where I am. because you never know when people are going to read books. Let's say, for instance, you have a sale and people see your book on sale for 99 cents, they download it onto their Kindle, and then months and months and months later, maybe years later, they finally get around to reading it. Hopefully, they're going to fall in love with it and they're going to want to be on your newsletter list. The problem with that is if you were with MailerLite when you published that book and that's the only link that you have, and now you're working with Flowdesk, they are not going to get to where they need to be. Yes, they could technically put the book down, search your website, and find you, but they have to love you a lot to start to make those extra moves to get on your newsletter list. You want to grab them and hold on to them as quick as you possibly can. There's two ways that I know of to make this an evergreen link, and one is to use a smart link or smart URL. There are many different companies out there. There's Pretty Links, there's Direct Link, there's a ton of different ones. All you have to do is Google it and you will find smart URLs. And basically what that is it is a one link, and it is a redirect link that's going to redirect you to whatever you want. So for instance, I had MailerLite as my underlying newsletter list. Well, I created this smart link for my newsletter. Now that I have switched to another provider, I basically just take that landing page link and attach it to that smart link. I don't have to change my smart link now because that link is in the back of all my books. It's on my website. It's in all of these different places. So if anybody wants to click on that link at any given time, they are going to be taken to my current newsletter platform and are able to sign up right away. A second way to do this without having to use a smart link, because some people don't really like to use redirect links, is you can direct them directly to your website. If you have a page on your website that is dedicated to your newsletter, then you can take that link from your website, because typically websites don't change quite as often. It is possible that you might change providers or something with your website, and that can cause a little bit of an issue. But usually if you're buying the website domain, it's gonna stay pretty static. So you can send them to a page on your website so they can find your newsletter sign up. If you have your newsletter sign up right on the front page, which is definitely a good idea because it's going to catch people's attention right away, then you can just send them straight to your URL and it'll be very, very simple. Mine, for instance, is scarlettkol.com. No matter who I go with, I own that domain, so as long as I keep paying for it, so I will always be scarlettkol.com, so it'll be very easy for people to go directly to my website. There's a pop-up there for my newsletter right away and they can sign up with no problems. My third tip is to provide value. There are so many people out there that are asking for people's attention, want to get in people's email inboxes, but what you need to do is you need to tell them why they need to be there and you need to follow through on it. So instead of saying, hey, sign up for my newsletter, maybe it's, hey, sign up for additional chapters. Maybe you'll have a reader magnet, which we'll talk about it in a second. So we'll get into the details there. But basically that's going to be a free story or a free book that they're going to want to read. You need something to entice them in, and that's going to give them some value when they sign up for your newsletter. If they want to know when your books are releasing, they can just follow you on Amazon. They can just check your website. But what is going to provide them with something that isn't offered anywhere else? Exclusivity is a great tool for people to want to join your newsletter, as well as if they think that they're getting something of value that's a deal. Restaurants have been doing this for a really, really long time. Sign up for our newsletter, get a coupon for a free appetizer. They know exactly how to market to people and people will sign up. They may eventually unsubscribe, which is something we will talk about more when I talk about builders and reader magnets, but at least you're getting them hooked into the newsletter list to begin with, and you can try to entice them to stay there. If you are offering them good value and then you provide that value in your newsletter, which is what we'll talk about next week, then you will be able to hook at least some of these people and they will stay as steady subscribers on your newsletter. But just remember, value doesn't need to be a one-time thing. If you're offering deleted scenes, extra stories, behind the scenes looks, cover reveals early, various things like that you can continue through your newsletter on and on and on. The next way to grow with your newsletter is something called a reader magnet. This is a very, very common practice, so people are usually really aware of it. But if you've not heard of a reader magnet, basically what this is you are offering up a story or a book for free for someone to sign up to your newsletter. Well, If you're just starting out, you're probably sitting there going, Scarlett, I barely have time to write my own book, let alone write an entire book just to give away, or a story just to give away. Yes, this can seem really daunting, but you don't really have to invest that much time into it if you don't want to. Obviously, the stronger your reader magnet, the more likely people are going to want to stay on with your newsletter and read other things that you've put out. But if you do not have the time or backlist for this, you can obviously start with something simpler. If you have a short story you've already written, but it's in a similar style, you can use that. If you are working on a book, but it's either not out yet or just came out and you don't have any other content, you could take the first 3 chapters or up until there's a hook in the book that you separate out as its own piece, and you can give that away as a teaser for your book to sign up to your newsletter. You can also, once you start building up that backlist and you have more and more books under your belt, then it could be worth it to offer a full book. So maybe a series starter is always a good one. Read the first book for free and then hopefully read the next 14. So these are obviously things that you can start with. And the nice thing about a reader magnet is you can change it up as your career changes. As you find something is more relevant, you can definitely go that way. If you write several series, you can change up which series starter you start giving away depending on which one you're concentrating on, or if you've just recently completed one, or one that has more books in the series than another, or seems to be more popular or less popular if that's what you're trying to do. The beautiful thing about a reader magnet, though, is that it is allowing people to read your work. So if they sign up and they get the free book and they read your work, then hopefully they're going to be enticed into other books that you have and actually paying for it going forward. The downfall is that there are people out there called freebie seekers, and basically what they want to do is they just want to read for free. So they're going to sign up for your newsletter. They have no interest in following you. They have no interest in continuing your series. They just want to read something and they don't want to pay for it. And that's totally reasonable. They are completely within their rights to sign up for your newsletter, get your free book, and either unsubscribe or basically just ignore your emails. These are people that you're probably going to want to scrub or cull later. However, sometimes if you offer up a really good reader magnet and you provide good content in your newsletter, maybe you can turn that person who's a freebie seeker into somebody that's going to support you in the long run. However, on the majority, those people that are basically just signing up for the free book and really aren't interested in you probably aren't going to provide a lot of value to your newsletter list. The nice thing about this too is that it's a really easy way to grow your newsletter. You're showing them what you have to offer, yet on the same note, it's something you can just write and forget about it. This is one of the ways that you've probably already heard because it's effective, it's easy, and it's cheap to do. The next thing I want to discuss is builders, and this is something that a lot of people kind of get up in arms about. It's a kind of a contentious issue. Some people think they're great, some people don't. So the question is to build or not to build. What a builder is when you get with either companies offer this, sometimes it can be just a group of authors, or you can technically just do this on your own. But obviously, if you have more authors to work with or a company to work with, you're going to have a little bit more reach with this. So basically what it is it's offering a prize up for anybody who wants to enter, because you can't necessarily require them to do anything. Otherwise, it's a lottery, and a lottery requires a lottery license. So anybody who wants to sign up to win this giveaway can, and then you usually offer other options. So if you would like an additional ballot, you will sign up for my newsletter. Or if you're doing it with multiple authors, sign up for my newsletter and Susie's newsletter and Becky's newsletter and Richard's newsletter. So these are all extra ways that people can enter a giveaway. You are going to get a lot more freebie seekers in the builders than you are with reader magnets, obviously, because they're going after the prize. They may not have even heard of you before, but they really, really want to win whatever that prize happens to be. So this is where things get tricky, because builders you typically have to pay for. Even if you do it yourself, you're going to have to pay for that prize. So you are essentially buying newsletter subscribers. Well, in my opinion, there's really nothing wrong with that. If that's something you choose to do with your money, that's all well and good. However, you do really need to be cautious with these sorts of things, because a lot of companies that offer this will be like, oh, I can get you 1,000 newsletter subscribers by you paying $70 to do this promotion, and that $70 is going to pay for part of the prize, a little bit of my time, and then you just sit back and forget it, and all you have to do is share it on your social media. Well, you do have to take in consideration that yes, you might get 1,000 subscribers, but when we go back to my first comment on quality versus quantity, you are going to lose so many more subscribers through a builder than probably any other method that I'm going to talk about today. The reason for that is those people are there for the prize. They are typically not there for you. It's just a happy coincidence that they are going to sign up for your newsletter because they really want to win something. Those people are a lot harder to engage because they don't have any sort of interest with you. In terms of a reader magnet, they've probably seen a cover, they've probably heard a blurb about your book or your story, and are enticed enough that they actually want to read it. With builders, it's not you specific, so you're going to have a lot more fall off. So yes, you might get 1,000 subscribers through this promotion, but there might only be 20 or 30 that are going to stick around for the long haul. So why continue to do this? Well, it does have a lot more reach. If you are doing this with 10 to 20 authors, then these authors are going to share it on their platforms, and those platforms obviously are going to have different people and different reach than what you have. It also makes it a little bit more difficult on your end because you're going to need to hook them right away. Once they're signed up for your newsletter, if they actually read a few of them, then you are going to need to make it as interesting for them as possible to want to stay on your newsletter. So it does make it a little bit more challenging for you to retain people, but sometimes you can get some really great people from these builders. It's really just up to you on whether or not you want to spend that money and spend the time trying to cultivate some of these cold readers into becoming a warm audience for you. To try to be more successful with builders, my personal advice would be, if this is a route that you want to go, try to get involved with builders that are very specific to what you do. So if you are in a builder where they are giving away, let's say, a stack of romance novels, but you're a thriller writer, yeah, you might be able to keep some of those people, but they're probably not going to be interested in your thriller stuff. The majority of people trying to win a romance prize are probably heavy romance readers, and if that's not what you write, they're not going to stick around, and it's going to be a huge waste of money for you. So the more closely tied the prize is to the stuff that you write, the better off you're going to be. Secondly, I find builders that have more book-related prizes tend to do a little bit better for newsletter retention, because at least you now are appealing to not only people in your genre, but you're appealing to people that are interested in reading. Just because they have a really cool prize related to, let's say, Game of Thrones, doesn't necessarily mean that these people are going to be readers. Maybe they just really liked watching the show on TV. However, if there's some book-related pieces with that and you're drawing in those readers through a builder, there is a chance that you are going to retain more of those people. To make it more specific, you can organize one yourself. You can do it on a smaller basis, get some authors that you know to get involved with it, and then that way you can control the prize and make sure that it makes sense. One good suggestion that I had seen somewhere else is that if you write a particular type of book, create the prize around similar types of reads. For instance, if you are a thriller writer, maybe create a prize that's all thriller books. You are in charge of that and you are responsible for it, and you're going to get people that are interested in thrillers signing up to your newsletter. And even though they might just still be freebie seekers and you may still have to cast them off, there's a better chance they're going to be more interested in your content because you know they're readers and they're thriller readers, because that's what they're trying to win. Ones that have gift cards I find are usually the least effective, simply because those people that are going after gift cards are not necessarily readers and it's not genre specific. The more specific to genre and to reading you can get, the better off you're going to be for newsletter retention. A nice take on these two, actually, I've seen recently is kind of like the reader magnet builder. And basically what that is it's a group of authors that get together to put together a collection. So for instance, let's go back to this thriller writer again. Apparently I'm all about thriller writers today. Let's say you and 10 other thriller authors like to put in a thriller short story into an anthology. And instead of putting that for sale, you're gonna offer it straight up for free. But the only way you can get it is to sign up to these newsletters. So you have So they give you the opportunity to sign up to 10 different newsletters, and you can get this book for free. So that way you are going to pool your resources with other people within your genre, still offer them something to read that hopefully is going to entice them to want to read your other material, and still have that group mentality and group reach that you're not going to get on your own. It's a nice little balance between the two of them. I haven't seen too many of them out there. There might be, maybe it's just the circles that I'm in that I haven't seen too many, but I do find that they can work really well, especially if you have somebody that does have a really strong social media or a very strong author presence as well. Getting involved in those sorts of things can really help boost you up. Now this brings us to one of my favorite ways to build your newsletter, and that's through conventions, events, and signings. So a lot of authors I've seen will forget about their newsletter when they're going to live events. I love building my newsletter through live events because you get that face-to-face contact with people, and I find that some of the people that have come onto my newsletter from being at a live event with me tend to stick around a lot more and tend to be a lot more engaged. Obviously, they have gone out of their way to talk to you, they're going to see your personality, and by the time that they're signing up to your newsletter, they already know they want to be there. So these can be really, really great and engaged subscribers. How do you get them at a live event? Well, there's a few different ways that you can do it. If you have a signing table or an actual event space where you were at, you can create a list, basically very simple, print out on a piece of paper. They can sign their name and their email. Just make sure that you are keeping it on file so that you are GDPR compliant. GDPR is mainly for the European Union, but obviously this could go over into other areas of the world. And this is basically saying that you have proof that they have given you permission to use their email address. When you are doing builders or reader magnets, you're also going to want to do that. And most of the platforms out there, they're already going to be set up that if somebody subscribes directly to your newsletter, that they're going to be GDPR compliant. However, there are some builders out there that aren't doing that sort of thing. And if you do have subscribers from the European Union, you could end up with some legal issues on your hands, which you definitely don't want to deal with. So when you are doing conventions or anything like that, you're going to have people write down their name, write down their email address, and then you would just upload it onto your platform of choice, enter it in all by hand when you get home. So that is one way to do it. Another way you can do it is by taking a tablet or a computer and just setting it up. Have somebody at your table and be able to have them go directly to the page and sign up right away. This is really, really great because it's already done. It's immediately going to their email. You're not spelling anything wrong, nothing like that. By doing it on a tablet or computer, then you're going to get it automatically. The problem with that is you need to make sure that A, you have backup power, and B, that you have Wi-Fi. Because if you don't, then that's not going to work. You could have them type it into, let's say, an Excel document or something like that. That's not going to require Wi-Fi if you aren't going to have it, and then at least you know it's spelled correctly. But those are a couple caveats that you need to have when you're doing it in person. The other thing that you can do is cards. I have done little business cards with a QR code on the back, those little scan codes, and it'll immediately take them to my newsletter to sign up. So that way, if I'm in a line somewhere, because some of the times when I go to conventions, I'm going as a reader as much as a writer. So I might meet somebody in line or at dinner or something like that, and I can just immediately slip them a business card that's got a QR code on the back. They can go on there on their phone and immediately sign up to my newsletter. Sure, they might get cast off, but really business cards, especially through something like Vistaprint, you can get super good deals on them. There's tons of places that will do business cards on the cheap. So it's an easy way to get people interested in your newsletter by just handing it off to them after you've had a conversation. This can be a little bit more intimidating because you do have to be like, hey, do you want to sign up for my newsletter? Here's my card. But if you do have a little bit more of those extrovert tendencies, or you are trying to really grow your newsletter list, this is a great way to do it. My next suggestion on growing your newsletter list is to leverage your other social media and remind people now and again. So just because somebody has signed up for your Instagram and is very interested in you doesn't mean that they're signed up on your newsletter. So periodically, I will post on all of my social media. Sometimes it's all on the same day, sometimes I stagger it, but I will be like, hey, did you know that I have a newsletter? And these are the things that I offer my newsletter people. And if you ever get a chance to do that, then maybe you should sign up for my newsletter. One of the things I mentioned in my video before on whether or not people need newsletters is the fact that if you are on social media and for whatever reason, those people leave the app or the social media app goes down or becomes unpopular or whatever, you will lose all of those followers because there's no way to contact them. If you can convert those followers from your Instagram, your Twitter, whatever, to your newsletter list, then you can at least keep in touch with them if anything were to happen on your social media. So definitely leverage your social media periodically by reminding people that you have a newsletter list. If you are offering any free reads that maybe they haven't come across yet, because you aren't offering them on those other platforms, and some of the stuff that you offer during the year. Some of the authors out there, depending on what platform you're on, you can use preview links of your newsletter. So basically what this is it's just a link that will take people to a copy of your newsletter. So one thing you can do is periodically, if you sent out a really good one, you could post that on your social media and be like, hey, I sent out my newsletter today. Want to check out what my newsletter is all about? Well, here's a link. You can see that and then have them sign up at that point. So these are definitely different things that you can do of reminding your existing followers that, hey, I have a newsletter, and if you want to keep in touch with me, this is a great way to do it. As an extra plus, this also gives you at least a day every so often of content to post on some of these social media platforms. So if you are struggling with things to post, this is going to give you a bit of a break because it's very, very simple. You can create yourself a little graphic, or you can just put it in the content, add a GIF, whatever. And is it a GIF? Yeah, I'm bad at that. And you can just include it there and move on with your life. It's going to remind people. You might pick up one or two when you do this. You might not pick up any at all, but it's something that you can post. It's content for your social media, and hopefully it's going to remind somebody to sign up for your newsletter later. Another thing you can do is if you're struggling to grow your newsletter, or you are relatively new as an author and just trying to build your platform, is you can always ask for help. One of those things that I really liked about that reader magnet builder thing where you got a bunch of authors together to get people to sign up to your newsletter is because you can leverage the followings of other people. Some of this is kind of dependent on the fact that you actually know people or have at least some sort of relationship, even online, with other people that write in your genre. And if you do, you can ask them to help you. If you are a new author and you know somebody, let's say you write sweet romance and you're a sweet romance author and you know some other people who write sweet romance, you can always ask them, hey, would you mind telling your followers that there's this new sweet romance author out there and this is their newsletter in case they're interested in signing up? You might not get anywhere with that, and they might say no. They might not be interested in promoting your stuff. It just really depends on what that relationship is. One of the things that you can do to sweeten the pot, obviously, is to give them an example of your work if they're reluctant to do so. Obviously, you don't want to push, but it's something you can put right away. I myself as an author would be reluctant to do this for someone if I hadn't read at least some of their work or know them relatively well, because I wouldn't want to promote somebody to my following that isn't going to be something that they're really going to be into. So I would want to make sure that, yes, this does not fit with my brand and that this makes sense for me, or this is somebody that I know and I'm content with the stuff that they're going to be putting out. So this can be a trickier one, but if you can pull it off, it can be a huge, huge benefit for you because you are leveraging other people's followings to help build your own. However, if you are doing those sorts of things, then you should make sure that you're supporting those people coming out. And when you are getting those sorts of asks, that you are putting in the due diligence of at least giving those people a chance if somebody's given you a leg up already. And my last suggestion is something I like to call a newsletter drive. I don't know if it has an official name, but that's what I'm calling it. Anyways, this is leveraging the people that are already on your newsletter list to grow your newsletter list. So as we probably know, as humans in the world, we tend to be attracted to people that like the same things that we do. Our friends have things in common with us. Our partners, our romantic interests, they tend to have things in common with us. And one of the things those things could be is what they like to read. So one of the things you could offer within your newsletter, and you could either just do it asking out of the goodness of your heart, or maybe offer them something like a $10 Amazon gift card. At this point, I wouldn't fuss too much about offering gift cards or like a Starbucks gift card, because these people are already signed up to your newsletter. So you've already got them there, and if they're reading this part of your newsletter to help you out, they're probably going to be relatively engaged anyway. So I wouldn't fuss too much about the fact that this is a gift card as opposed to in a builder, like I was saying, because these people are already engaged. But basically what you're going to do is you are going to ask for references and see if they can get people to sign up to your newsletter. You can create a separate form, and that person needs to write who recommended them, and then everybody who, for every recommendation that somebody has between now and the next 2 months or within a month or whatever, goes into a draw, and the winner of that draw is going to get a gift card. The other thing you can do is you can keep it completely open for everybody, and basically anybody who recommends somebody, if you give me their name and they sign up to my newsletter, then I'm gonna send you out some swag. So bookmarks, pens, whatever. That is something that you can definitely do by leveraging the people that are already on your newsletter list. And if they're going to go out and talk to their friends and people that are important to them, first off, they're probably gonna try and find people that are actually interested in signing up for that newsletter, because they're putting their own neck on the line. They are telling other people that it's worth being on your newsletter list because they're already there and they already like it. So the chance of people being more engaged in your newsletter is a little bit higher because they're already interested in the genres that you write and in reading and in that person who is super engaged with your newsletter. So this can be a really, really great tactic. However, obviously you have to have started somewhere and you need to already have people engaged on your newsletter list for that to work. So those are my tips on growing your newsletter. If you are growing your newsletter and you have something else that you'd like to share, make sure you're leaving that in the comments below. Or if you'd like some more clarification on any of these things, then you can put that in the comments and I'll definitely answer your questions. I know I skimmed over some of them a little bit quicker than I probably could. I could probably do an entire video on reader magnets or builders or anything like that, but I really just wanted to get through everything. However, if you are interested in something and you would like some more information, I can definitely make a specific video about that later. So leave that in the comments below as well. If you liked this video, make sure you're giving a thumbs up to tell YouTube this is content worth watching. And if you missed my first video on whether or not authors really need newsletters, you might want to go check that out. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you are not a subscriber yet, make sure you're hitting the subscription bar and the notification bell so they will let you know anytime I put out new content. If you're interested in joining my newsletter, it is also in the description box below. And I'll be back next week on ways to make your newsletter more effective and more efficient to get done.